Thanks so much for your willingness to participate in the Oral History Project, Jesse. So, will you just state your name and then give us a spelling?
Okay, it's Jesse Dominguez, uh, Dominguez. I'm also known as Jose Jesus Dominguez, but everybody knows me as Jesse.
And then your age.
It is 74, going to be 75 in 2 weeks.
Ooh, happy early birthday. That's
Yeah.
exciting. And then what do you identify as racially?
It's funny. Everybody calls Hispanic, but I'm of American citizen of Mexican descent.
There we go. Thanks. And
hmm
then your employment.
My employment was with the City of Flagstaff Housing Authority for 53 years. I'm now retired and working harder.
Thanks. And then what is the highest level of education that you completed?
I went to NAU, and when I got married, I had to drop out. So I never did get an associate's, but I do have a lot of certifications in public housing management, budgeting, that kind of stuff. But I don't have a degree.
And then today is September 25th and it's about 1:15 in the afternoon.
Right.
So, for the first question, will you please share what are some of your earliest memories of the neighborhood?
Some of my earliest memories of Plaza Vieja is the dirt roads, the gravel roads, no sidewalks, and kids playing in the streets. No traffic, no cut through traffic. It was just a real quiet neighborhood, and everybody knew everybody. So it was one of those things where everybody was just uh, living a real simple, easier life. Um, Dad went to work, mom was cooking. Uh, the neighbors, same thing. Dad was at work, mom was cooking, and the kids were playing in the streets. And, we all knew each other. We went to school together. Some of them went to Emerson School, the other ones went to Catholic school, just depending on where the parents sent you. But we all played it after school together.
And like, how would you spend your time when you say you'd play after school together? Like, what would you do when you were playing after
Oh, we
school?
would either ride our bikes, play baseball in the street, right there on Park Street. That was our baseball field. It was a tree for first base, a rock for second base in the middle of the street, and another tree for third base, and then home plate, which is another rock. And we would play in the street. And again, there was no traffic. So, I mean, if you seen a car come by, it was like, wow, there's a car coming by. Where nowadays they don't dare do that. Of course, they have baseball fields now in the neighborhood, which in those days we didn't have until later on. Some of the neighborhood dads created the little league park that's still there.
Wow, nice.
hmm
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So what would like a typical day look like in middle school for you?
In middle school,
Yeah.
well, we'd get up, and school always started like either 8 or 8:30. I don't remember. And of course, we had to walk because it was we weren't bused for one thing, so we'd have to walk all the way up Sitgreaves to what was the Flagstaff Junior High School at that time, the old building, and then go to class, make sure we were there on time. It all depends, everybody, our kids always say, "Oh yeah, in the 10 feet of snow." I say, "Well, it may be 5 feet of snow." And it was cold, and we'd see the kids on the bus drive by, and they were making fun of us as we were walking to school. But then there was the real pretty days like today, and we'd walk to school, and it's funny, we ran home for lunch, ate lunch, then ran back to school to finish the afternoon, and I think we got off at 4 o'clock. I mean, it was like from 8 to 4. It was a full day of school with an hour for lunch. So it was we got our exercise. You probably go to physical education and run all day, and then you'd have to run home for lunch. It was crazy, but we did it. We were hungry, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And how did that change when you were a teenager? What would a typical day look like, or what would you spend your time doing as a teenager?
well, we'd go to school first of all, and after school we either and even being a teenager, you come home and watch cartoons or Wallace and Ladmo after at 4 o'clock, uh, and see what was on TV. And being a teenager, there was the black and white TVs. It wasn't the color TVs. We were fortunate enough to have a color TV, and I guess it was color TV. It was just a big blob of colors. But anyways, we were able to see TV till about 4, 5, or 5:30. Then it was dinner time. TV got turned off, and we had to sit down and eat at the table with my mom, my dad, my brothers, and everybody did it. I mean, it wasn't just my family. If we were playing outside in the street, everybody had to go home at a certain time to go eat dinner. Then we would come out later after dinner and play for a few hours, and then I guess we did our homework sometime in between there or what have you, or we didn't do it. I don't remember. But anyways, that it was really just a fun time, playing with all the neighborhood kids. Some,
And
some,
sorry.
some, most of the kids were real friendly. There was one family right next door to my mother's house, Mrs. Hodigi, and those kids were not allowed to play with us. And it was too bad because they wanted to play with us, but for some reason, I don't know if it was a status symbol or don't play with those kids or bad news or what have you. But the rest of us, we all played in the neighborhood, and there was a ton of kids. It wasn't just a few families. I mean, it was a lot of children that played, and I mean, there was always the fights, and I don't want to play no more, and they'd run home, and the next day they were there. But that's what would happen.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you who were some of the people you spent time with, but you kind of mentioned that there were a lot. Can you remember any like
Oh yeah,
families you were really close with?
well,
Or
Mrs. Baca's kid sons, who Alex, he was the ring. We always called him the ringleader, Alex, and then there was Mrs. Anaya's son, the Sanchez, their sons, the Alfaros who own La Casita restaurant, which is now Mike and Rhonda's. Frank, and it's funny because he came to visit me not too long ago. We always knew him as Psycho, and as he grew older, he says, "I don't like that name, guys. I think I'm Psycho." His real name was Frank, but we didn't know his name was Frank. We called him Psycho. And so, anyways, they all had nicknames. And like I say, the Gomez's, Laura's uncle, Jimmy, who was one of my best friends, he lived way at the end of Armory Street or Clay Avenue. And I mean, either we'd go to his house or he'd come to our house. We'd ride our bikes. It was always a lot of kids that wanted to play. And just, of course, we had nothing else to do. I mean, we didn't have laptops. We didn't have all this modern stuff that the kids have nowadays. I mean, you don't see kids out anymore playing. They're inside with their computers and pads and games.
yeah,
Even my grandkids, I got to go home because I got to play a game. I'm like, okay, with somebody across the country. I don't know.
right, right.
Scary. Yeah.
Um, so beyond just the kids playing after school, what are some things that would bring the neighborhood together? And what did that look like
Some
when the
things that
neighborhood
would,
would come together?
yeah, would bring the neighborhood together would be either somebody getting hurt,
Mm,
people, somebody like my dad had his fingers cut when a bad accident had happened at the sawmill, and all the neighbors came to help us. They did they didn't they didn't wait. They just came to help my mother and help my dad and what have you. And the other thing that was real important for Plaza Vieja was Our Lady of Guadalupe Church and the priest. It was sort of the hub of not only Plaza Vieja but Southside, and
mm,
all the people, most of the people, I should say all, not all, were sawmill workers. So they had that connection. So there was like the Triangulo Club, which was basically Mexican males that did scholarships, $100 I mean, it was a long time ago, but there's a lot of, a scholarship that they would give to graduating high school students, the 49er Club. And I don't know why they even existed, but they were social clubs.
Mm.
The Young Club was social, civic, and patriotic, I think it was. And but they were all older gentlemen that worked at the sawmill. And then, of course, there was the Union Hall, which was where all the sawmill workers, they were unionized, and they all met there and, discussed, are they going to strike? Are they going to do this? So there was all these little things that kept all these families together. And then, of course, the church, and it's sort of sad. Our Lady, the Montessori school, which used to be Our Lady of Guadalupe, was built in 1956 because they would not allow Mexican children to that new St. Anthony's, was over in on the north side, the Nativity Church, the big church on Beaver Street. So Monsignor, or at that time Father Lindenmeyer, who was a German priest that spoke fluent Spanish, he says, "Well, we're going to make our own school." That Guadalupe Church was built for the wrong reason. It was for the Mexican families, and so he created that build. They built that building, and Father Lindenmeyer, James Lindenmeyer, he uh, he knew how to work the politicians. He knew how to get money, but then they also assessed all the sawmill workers $5 a paycheck to help build that school, whether you liked it or not. And that's something. I mean, $5 is a lot of money in those days. But it just there was the Jamaicas, sort of like the tardeada that they are sort of having, but it was a whole week. They had the Jamaica Queen. They had, I mean, a carnival that would show up. They close up the streets, and they had all this pageantry. They had plays under the basement of the church, and it was just a lot of cultural uh, things to do. Really fun
That's
time.
great. That's
Yeah,
great. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
Um, and what really do you think was special about La Plaza Vieja? Like, because obviously there were different regions and different neighborhoods, but what made La Plaza Vieja special?
You know, I guess it was a unique little island within the Flagstaff area. The railroad tracks on the north and Route 66 on the south. And it's funny because I went to the south side. Oh, bring your stories, because I range from south side, and we
Mm,
lived in south side too. But anyways, and it was funny because they brought it up. We couldn't cross Route 66 and go to the south side. It
mm,
was, I mean, it was a major highway at that time. I mean, semi trucks, everything going by, and you take your life, and going to church was a take your life in your hands. But we were sort of isolated, and
mm,
we all knew each other. So we were like, we had two little grocery stores that you can go buy bread. I mean, if you had to really go, you'd have to go down where the Beaver Street Brewery is. That was Food Town Supermarket. That was the local supermarket. And so you could go buy a pound of bologna and bring it home. Um, but getting back, we were sort of isolated. We stuck together, and we knew we had friends. We knew we had somebody that if we needed help, they'll be there. Um, Everybody knew each other. Uh, if you look at it today, I know a few of the neighbors, but most of them, and it's funny, and I know some of those, they're students that have come from Phoenix or California or wherever they come from, Washington State, wherever, and if you try to say hello to them, they don't talk.
mm,
They're afraid. I mean, that's where they come from. That's their culture. And to me, if in in the days of when we were growing up, hey, what are you doing? Blah blah blah. I mean, everybody, hey, you want a good piece of gum or whatever? Oh, let's go bike riding. Let's do this. Let's do that. And all our parents did the same thing. They would I remember my mom would invite Mrs. Arias or Mrs. Baca to have coffee and a bocadito, right? And a piece of pie or whatever they made. And then they would go to their house, and then the other one would come to.
Mhm.
They would come and socialize with each other, and just gossip. I know that's what it was. They were just talking about so and so or whoever or what have you, or did you hear or what have you. But there was more of that personal relationships. It wasn't. I mean, later on, yeah, we had a phone. Wow, you call somebody, but in the olden days, is what my kids call it. They actually would visit each other. That was
Mm.
the key. They would visit each other. I mean, and they didn't drive; they had to walk. Most of the time, they had to walk. Like Mrs. Gomez, which is Laura's grandmother. I remember them walking from at the end of Clay Avenue, which is their house, all the way to my mom's house, which is right there on Tucson, and vice versa. They would go visit, and for an hour. I mean, it'd take an hour to get there, but anyway, it was, and so that's what I think was sort of neat about the past. I think that's
Yeah.
gone. I mean, even, and I don't care how good a neighborhood you have right now, people don't know each other. They don't.
Yeah. It sounds to me, would you agree that something that made it unique or special was the like cohesion and the like reciprocity built in relationships of the
Mhm.
neighborhood, like the coming together and the reciprocity of like helping and I don't want to say just returning, but like yeah, people giving at
They
times
were,
when
they
it's
were,
needed.
they were, they would give back to each other.
There we go.
And
Back to each other. I like that.
and you have, today's your day to have coffee, and tomorrow's my turn. And so that's what they would do. I mean, and they all would mingle. There was a few that were better than others, and that's okay, you know. And at the end, it turned out, uh, I got talked about Mrs. Hodeggy, which was right next door to my mother's. I mean, she wouldn't let her kids out. She wouldn't let them play. They were better than us little dirty little kids running around the neighborhood. And later on, she came around and she would come and visit us as when I built my home here and visit Irene and I and became friends. Somehow we broke a barrier. I don't know. It was her barrier, not ours. It was her barrier that she had to deal with, and it was. I'm sure it was taught to her. It was
Mhm.
taught.
And so, what were some challenges that the neighborhood faced, and like how have people addressed these challenges?
The challenges. The challenges, of course, the biggest one was developers.
Mm,
When I built my home here in 1978, 77, 78, we still had dirt streets. We had gravel streets, no sidewalks. And one of my challenges was I had to go to planning and zoning, which today, now that I'm older and know better, I don't even know why I had to go. It was considered residential. Why did I even have to go to planning and zoning? It's not like I was building a
get
high.
permission.
Yeah, I was getting permission. And I remember a zoning commissioner, I can still see him, big Anglo guy. He says, "Well, that whole neighborhood should be raised and rebuilt." And I'm like, "How dare you?" But I didn't know better. I mean, nowadays I would have said something. In those days, I was just trying to get a permit to build my home here. And so, kept my mouth shut. My dad would always say, "No, that's no, 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 that's pedo. Don't let dirt fall on you. Que no te caiga tierra." And we. It's because that's the way I think they were raised. Uh, Sort of timid. They would take whatever they had to just to survive.
Mm,
There was people would, my dad got fired many, not fired, laid off from the sawmill many times because the Okie needed a job.
mm,
Coming through, grapes of wrath. And so to me, the challenge of Plaza Vieja was it was it was looked down as a slum area for many years. I mean, you could have bought the whole neighborhood for probably $500.
Mhm.
Wish I had had $500. I would have bought the whole neighborhood, but I didn't. And then all of a sudden, because NAU was across the highway from us, student housing started to happen. And I think a lot of as people died off, some of the elders passed away, and the kids had moved away. It was easy to sell, and pretty soon we got taken over by developers. And they're absentee landlords. They're not people that live here. One of the famous ones that I is oh, I can't remember his name, but anyways, the one around the corner from me built those big eightplexes,
Mhm.
and he was a professor over at NAU, and he got, I mean, he was able to do whatever he wanted to. He built those eightplexes and moved into students. It was student housing. That was the original student housing here in Plaza Vieja that was dedicated student housing. And believe it or not, they had to have a conditional use permit because they didn't pave the parking spots. They didn't do a lot of stuff. So,
Was
and
it
it was
also because they had to pay by the room? Wasn't that a part of
they paid by the room, right? They had their own bathrooms. Each one has their own bathrooms, and they paid by the room. And that was the original one. And then the one across from where you used to live, that big one right there on Park Street, not directly across from you, but the caddy corner. That was
I think it's 101, I just saw there was an
Hol-
apartment for rent there.
Holsworth. That's his name, Grant Holsworth. And then he had a partner. I can't remember, Fox, I think was his name. And they started building those buildings to make money. They were professors over at NAU, and they well, and you got to give them credit. They bought the land cheap and were able to build them cheap. They're still here, but now we're stuck with them. They're gone. And so that continues on with Hope Construction and some of those other folks. One day, when the Heels had a property right behind me, I had a guy by the name of Walker who worked for Hope Construction. He says, "We're cleaning up the neighborhood." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, we're getting more professional people in here." I said, "Well, what do you think I am?" And it was just his attitude that I think when I came right back at him, he's like, "What do you think? These people weren't professional?" Yeah, just because they worked at the sawmill, they had a profession. They were cutting, they were cutting the two by fours that your house is built out of. So I mean, it was, but it's that mentality that it went, and all neighborhoods go through that. They go. I remember when we had, I think, 15 abandoned houses in the neighborhood, and and the buzzword, and the city hated it. Oh, we're a blighted community. Oh, they hated that word because that stereotyped Flagstaff. And so we as a neighborhood association, we weren't really a neighborhood association. We were just a group of folks. We started going to the city council meetings or whoever or politicians that would listen to us, and we said, yeah, I live in a blighted community. We have the broken window syndrome. We just take a look. And Dave Wilcox, I don't know if you remember him or not. He was the city manager. He, to his credit, he met with us and he says, "We're going to fix it." Because again, there was this program called the CDBG, Community Development Block Grant money.
Oh.
That's how we got our streets paved. That's how we got our sidewalks. And there was a young man, by his name is Gordon Pedro. He was a black gentleman that worked for the city, maybe 6 months, but he got us our sidewalks and our curbs and gutters. Otherwise, we wouldn't. We probably would have got them, but we weren't worth. We were not part of the budgeting. We were not part of. We were just that neighborhood. And again, that's when Blackbird Roost started to pop up. Oh well, Blackbird Roost is, and I said, no, 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 no. This has always been Plaza Vieja. Well, what's Plaza Vieja? And then they have a hard time pronouncing it Plaza Viejo or whatever. They chop it up, and that's okay. But at least they know. one time, Liz Archuleta was running for District 2 at that time, and there was you called into the radio station, and there was the guy that was running against Liz was on the phone around the radio station. I called in. I said, "So, where's Plaza Vieja?" He had no clue. Yet he was going to represent us. He was going to represent us. And I remember Liz calling me later saying, "Thank you for that question, because that really you knew he wasn't from here. He was representing somebody else. So why would I want somebody that didn't even know where I lived representing me or the area?" So United Way then came in to help us. And Carrie, I can't remember Carrie's last name. Anyways, Bloom, Carrie Bloom. She she started to educate us and tell us, if you want something, you have to push the buttons. You have to learn to talk to the politicians, be a thorn in their side. Ask, remind them, you know, Plaza Vieja, Plaza Vieja, Plaza Vieja. Pretty soon we had Plaza Vieja. So now, I mean, if you ask a politician, Plaza Vieja, oh yeah, that's where I drive through to go home. Or I know where that's at. It's over there behind the big barn, Natural Grocers, or behind Dairy Queen, or Montessori School, or Blackbird Roost. But they know where we're at now. And so we were able to, there was a name by Griselle Apodaca. She was from New Mexico, and she was a consultant that came in, and to educate the group as to how to try to save our neighborhood.
Mm.
And one of the things that she always said was small victories, small victories. And the best victory we ever had was when the Standard was trying to take over the mobile home park. We still sort of lost because those people are all gone now. I remember Woods, the zoning attorney, big shot zoning attorney from Scottsdale, came up to me and says, "We underestimated you guys." What a victory for us. We shut them down. This little group of people, and they were trying to buy us out. I mean, you'd be surprised how much pressure. I even got pressured at work. I was
Wow.
I was talked to by by the planning and zoning director. He says, "If you know," I said, "Are you telling me what I think you're telling me?" And I said, "Nope, that ain't going. No way. You're not going to say that to me." He says, "People make their own minds. I don't tell people what to do." And it was funny because I got talked to, and that's okay. I
Well, and at the time, the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission was the owner of Hope Construction. So just to point out that connection. But just
Yep.
real quick, what was the time period that you said that the NAU professors started building the student housing? Do you remember what time, like around what
Yeah,
time it
that was
was?
1980s.
Okay.
Yeah, the early 80s, because we had just moved into our home here. We moved in 1979, and there was an empty piece of land right there on the corner. I mean, you could have bought it for $5,000, the whole corner. And I'm like, oh, I didn't have $5,000. And he bought it, and he built that building. Then he bought the one over there on Park in Phoenix, and that was a really beautiful, big open land owned by Mr. McElroy. And he died, and of course they sold the property, and now you got and I don't know if it's student housing anymore or not. To me, both of these are become like veterans and not homeless, but because of course they live there, somehow they're being subsidized.
Yeah, I know the ones across the street on Park are because they're the neighbor right across the street from me was in subsidized housing. But on that corner right there at the end of Park,
Mhm.
I think that there are students that come in and out, but I think there's also young professional men in there that have stayed for like 5 years.
Yeah,
But it's always men in that corner, in that
yeah, it's
those
always
like
and that's the
eight.
same way it is on my corner here on Florence and Tombstone, is that they're all men, and they come and they go. Some of them have lived there. almost 20 years,
Oh,
and they're not going anywhere. Yeah, they live in their room. They have their
I
own
know which
private.
one you're talking about. Yeah. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it that's one of the challenges.
Is and so the next question, you kind of already talked about it. It was, how has the neighborhood changed, and when do you think it started to change the most, and why? And so you kind of already talked about the student housing that started in the 80s. Was that the beginning of change? Were there other changes that happened, or how has the neighborhood really changed since
Well, you know, and
when
and
you
and
were
it's
little?
funny. It's funny because it's just not gentrification. It's just the kids, what I call the kids, the offsprings of the older families moved away. And so mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, a good example is the Otero family um, that lived right here on Tucson Avenue. Grandma Virgie and Ray Otero they were great families, you know, and but the kids moved away. And when they sold that house, it was like, why did you guys sell the family home? And I guess they needed money or what have you. For example, Dave Gonzalez, I don't know if you know him, he's the U.S. Marshal for the state of Arizona. He grew up in that house. That U.S. Marshal, little David, that's where he grew up. Grandma raised him. You know, they had Western Liquor Store over there on San Francisco, which is the Thai restaurant now on San Francisco Street. That was the Otero Liquor Store, Western Liquors. And the Judge Otero, grew up in that house. So, you know, there's a lot of successful people. But getting back to your question, I think they move away and then they sell the property and it's gone. And then, of course, the investors are ready to give you
Which is
$200.
gentrification. I want to push back on the idea that it's not gentrification, because there is, I mean, not necessarily the families leaving, but the land being cheap, so all the investors were able to buy it up, because now a one bedroom apartment is um I can't believe I'm Gloria's old house. They're it's renting for $1,900
Oh yeah,
and advertised as a one bedroom.
yep. And one of the things that I see is that um, what was I? Where was I going? Th- it-
Sorry.
they bought it out cheaply. They bought it out. Oh, I know. Where I was headed was we fixed up the neighborhood. We asked for the CDBG funds. We got everything. We made it look nice, and it sort of backfired on us. The investors came in and say, "It's already paved. It looks nice. Well, new water lines, new sewer lines. All we got to do is build a building." So it sort of backfired. We were trying to save the neighborhood, yet the neighborhood got sold out. I mean, it's six of one, half dozen of the other because we made it look. I guess if we still had dirt roads, they would have come and they'd had to pave them. Where now
Mm,
they don't have to pay for that. We asked for that. We did that.
yeah, that's a really good point. That's a
Yeah,
really good point. And what are some things you would like to see changed about the neighborhood?
I would just like to see the identity preserved, and that's the bricks. That's what we're doing now. Where I mean, uh, my great grandchildren say, "Oh yeah, that Dominguez guy, he lived on Tombstone," and this is what they did. This is what they were. This is what they were doing. You know what I mean? Uh, where we could at least preserve some of the history. I mean, a lot of people worked really hard to make this neighborhood a little nicer. Um, and if you think about it, a lot of the people lived in this neighborhood moved from the mill town, Los Chantes,
Mm,
which were the labor camps of the sawmill. And it's like the George Jefferson song, moving on up to the north side. This was the north side to them. And of course, they had their they had their church, they had their school, they had their grocery stores, they had a neighborhood, and it was actually really nice. Like I say, some of these The house on the corner of Clay and Blackbird Roost, the right in the corner, that was a beautiful home by the Cruz family. I mean, it was just beautiful. I mean, now if you look at it, if I had the money, I'd love to buy it and rehab it. And I mean, it was just so there was people that had, I don't know, they had money, but I mean, you could see the lace curtains. I mean, it was all landscaped. I mean, just the beautiful homes that we had here. And of course, when they become rentals and absentee landlords that
Mm,
don't care, they go away. Yeah, they have a rundown neighborhood, and neighborhoods go through that. There is a cycle of neighborhoods that they're up here, and you're starting to see some of that even in some of the Richie neighborhoods nowadays. What is it?
Islands. Is
Forest,
that
not
right?
Forest Islands, University Heights.
Oh, yep. That
Okay,
was what was in my
yeah,
head too. University
University
Heights.
Heights is starting to have those issues. It's the all of a sudden, those houses are 60, 70 years old and nobody's put any into it. It's a rental now. And guess what? They look sort of dumpy. I mean, when they used to be, oh, only professors lived there from NAU, they was just the place to be. So every neighborhood goes through what we've gone through. And hopefully there are even Plaza Vieja, we've lost our families. There's still a few, we can't say we're not, that are hanging on, like Mr. Sanchez, Denayas, Bustamantes, myself, Cedillos, uh, that it just one of those things where it just uh, we're trying to preserve a little bit of it, just a little bit for our kids, grandkids, really, and and to have that identity. It's just like I get upset with Southside. I know that uh, they're putting a lot of murals out there, and I'm like, that's not really representative of Southside because I knew Southside. Irene was born in Southside. We lived in Southside before we built this home, and uh, there was very few black families in Southside. The majority were Mexican, Native American, and the Anglos. I mean, it was a big melting pot over there. But to say that it was predominantly black, that's wrong. And I told Coral that. I said, uh, you were the minority in the minority neighborhood. And it's still, it's still uh, learning, put it that way. That's why they had that group the other day. And there was people that were saying, well, wait a minute. So-and-so lived here. So-and-so lived here. So-and-so lived here. Oh, really? We didn't know that. I said, "Nope." So that's why you want to keep the history, the pioneers, keep them around so that we can pass it on. I mean, it's going to change no matter what we do. It's going to change. But hopefully, we save a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of already answered the last question about like what made you stay in the neighborhood, but have there been any challenges to you staying in the neighborhood?
We almost left the neighborhood. We had built this house, and in 1978, 79, took us a year to build it, and lots of beans and tortillas, and they wouldn't loan us money to help build it. They were redlining us at that time. Pima Savings. I'll always mention that. So that's okay. So our house is paid for because they didn't allow us. So we struggled and we saved and we bought 2x4s or we found 2x4s or whatever had to happen. We got it done. And so we had built our home and we had a realtor here in town that was going to sell it. And I came home at lunchtime for lunch, and Irene's sitting in the front and she's crying. And I'm like, what's going on? She says, I don't want to leave my home. And the reason being, the Christmas tree that's in front of our house, it was transplanted. I From Clark Homes, it was 3 foot tall before we built our home. And now look at it. I mean, it's
Really?
probably 70 feet tall. Uh, but Irene could not let go of the Christmas tree. And I said, We don't have to move. Well, we were everybody wants to, well, the grass looks greener over there. Well, it looks just as good right here. But we almost made that mistake. We almost, and the thing of it is, it was, I think at that time they were selling this house for $80,000. I'm like, we couldn't have found another house for that price. And now we're in the middle of Flagstaff. I mean, we can walk to Mike and Rhonda's, we can walk to Jack in the Box, we can walk downtown, we can walk to, and we're in a perfect location. But I still remember that guy. Oh, that area should just be raised and rebuilt. But he probably knew something I didn't know, is the investors. He was on planning and zoning, so I'm sure. And there's a couple of instances that I have learned from good friends of mine, and I'm going to say Joe Kavanaugh. He told me, "Hey, there's a dummy selling his house on O'Leary Street." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, he's selling it really cheap." He said, "Joe, what are you talking about?" He says, "Yeah, some guy. I had a realtor call me up, and of course, the realtor was a good friend of mine. Was a good friend of mine." He says, "He's almost giving that property away." I said, "You know who the dummy was? Was me. I was the one. They already had the backdoor deals done."
Wow.
And Joe said, "What are you thinking?" I said, "That's they're paid for. What are you selling them so cheap for? If you want to make money, don't give them away." And I'm like, because I don't charge a lot of rent on my properties, because I feel that, if we can pay for them and people can afford them, that's affordable housing. To me, affordable housing is a dumb name. Affordable to a person that has zero is not affordable. A person that has $1 million, buy whatever you want to. So affordable housing is just a name that people, it used to be in Flagstaff, you could buy a fixer upper and be able to fix it up and live in it. And then if you wanted to make a few bucks, you sell it and buy you another house. Can't do that anymore. The investors are coming in and they buy everything out. So there's a lot of, if I'd had the funds, I would have bought the whole neighborhood, but I never had all that money.
Right. Well, I'm really glad that you were taking the time and spending so much energy to preserve the stories and to share the history with other people. So
Yeah.
those were all the questions. Thank you so much. Was there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't really get a chance to cover?
Well, I just want to thank you for all that you've done for us. I know you've helped us out a bunch. We're still stumbling through a lot of the what do we do now? And so thank you for helping us with this grant, and also for helping us with sometimes fighting City Hall. I know that was always fun. And I always feel sorry for the people, like, for example, at the trailer park. I know they survived, but where are they now? Don't know. And I mean, so when people, I just remember when the standard was being built, that they didn't care. This corporation out of Georgia or wherever they were from, they didn't care about the people. It was all about money. And so to me, I think if we can sort of, we still, and that's part of my housing authority background. Uh, when you're renting government housing, you're not going to go up against them and say, "Hey, you can't do that to me." Some people do, but most of them are like my mom and dad. Don't make waves. Don't say nothing. We'll lose our housing. So they live with that oppression, or somebody's got the thumb and they're going to do that to them. And to me, there has to be the outside people to say, "You can't do that." Sort of like yourself. You can't, you got to, you can't do that to those people. I've had that done at many times. There was one time while I was still working in my office, and I heard these two guys, caseworkers, says, "Well, who are we going to get rid of today?" And I'm like, I didn't hear that. Sure enough, I did hear that. So I went onto the hallway and I said, "Did you guys just really say that?" I said, "Well, we'll see who we're going to." I said, You could be talking about my mom, you could be talking about my brother, could be talking about me. So I went down directly to the executive director's office and I said, this does not go. And so to me, I was at the right place at the right time, not trying to brag about myself, but you have to have those little checks and balances because there is people that, well, who are we going to get rid of today? That's a person. That's a family. That's a child. Who are we going to get rid of today? It's like, who made you? Doop, doop. Mm-mm. Doesn't work. So anyway, so I think that's what we need to be real vigilant about, and just keep our ears and eyes open. Sometimes we get in trouble over it. That's okay. Yeah.
I still remember. I'm glad you mentioned the Arrowhead Village that night that planning and zoning against the standard, and when the application was withdrawn at City Council. I remember that night and the sounds of celebration at Arrowhead Village and the kids and the families out celebrating. And
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite.
And the sad thing about it, they sort of still won, but it was the owner of the property that sold them out. They were paying rent, and it's still for sale, so that's okay. I guess he's got lots of money. Anyways.
Well, he doesn't because he hasn't been able to. He's not going to get it rezoned from affordable housing.
Right.
So
that's the good thing
now, and we'll fight it if he tries. But Thanks so much, Jesse.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Let me know what I need to do. Okay.